Okay, in this first one we're trying to determine what's happening. Looks like we're decreasing by 2 over and over again. That is arithmetic. Number 2, looks like we're cutting it in half each time, aren't we? So dividing by 2 or multiplying by 1/2, so that's geometric. Number 3, find the indicated term, and so we're looking for the 73rd term. So this is arithmetic, so I'm going to use my formula for arithmetic. Looking for the 73rd term. My first term is 56 plus, then it's n minus 1, but n is 73, so 73 minus 1 times d, which is 13. So I'm going to take 56 plus 72 times 13. And I get 992. So a sub 73 is 992. Number 4, we're looking for a sub 19. My first term, that's 16. For n, the subscript a sub 19, 19 is the n. That's the 19th term. Times d, looks like I have to find this one myself, but I see that we're adding 16 over and over again. So it's 16. So I'm going to take 16 plus 18 times 16. To get 304. Now in the next section, we're just leaving it in terms of n. We won't find specific numbers, we'll just find an equation. So number 5, I know my first term is 64. It looks like I'm adding 14. So I would distribute. Then I'm going to combine like terms. A sub n equals 14n plus 50 on number 6. Looks like on this one I'm going up in value. Maybe it's not quite as obvious. If you're not sure how much it's going up by, you can do this on the calculator. Take the second term, like negative 323, and subtract from it the first term, which is negative 416. You see that, oh, I'm increasing by 93 every time, so that's what I'm adding. And so now you can distribute. A sub n equals 93n, and then negative 416 minus 93 is negative 509. And number 7. It looks like I'm going down by 14. Yeah, increasing by 14 rather. I'm adding 14 over and over again. So a sub n equals 14n minus 101. Number 8, arithmetic mean. So, a couple ways we can do it, but one is to say that, oh, look, I started at 235. And I'm going to add d. Looks like we have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times to get to 32. Or you could also count how many blanks you have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Add 1 to that, 7. 7d is what you're adding. We can subtract 235. Divide by 7. Is that 29, I believe? And then, so it looks like, yeah, we're decreasing by 29 over and over again. So if we take the 235 and subtract 29 from 235, we get that our next term is 206. And then the next term, just continually subtract 29. 177, 148, 119, 90, 61, and then just to verify if we do it one more time, yes, we do in fact get 32, so it works out. So those are the missing terms, those are the arithmetic means. Now we get to a sum of a series. So our formula is this. We need to know n, a sub 1, and a sub n. So on number 9, I know my first term. I also know my last term is 91. What I don't know is what n is. So we got to do some work to find that out. So let's think about our sequence formula. A sub n, so in this case that's 91. The 91st term is equal to the first term plus n minus 1. I don't know what n is. Trying to find that out. Times d, looks like I'm adding 5 over and over again. So I can distribute this. Add 9. So the n is 20. So 91 was the 20th term. So now I have what I need to find my sum. So the sum of these 20 terms is equal to 20 times the first one plus the last one divided by 2. Subtract 4 from 91 and get 87 divided by 2 times 20. It should be 870. Okay, and then the next one, next one, we know our first term is 13. We know the last term is 272. And we need to once again figure out what n is. So, 272 is equal to the first term plus n minus 1 times d. Looks like we're adding 7 every time. And we get, let's just make sure, I want to make sure I didn't make a mistake there. Oh, I needed to subtract 6, not add 6. Okay. That explains it. So 266 divided by 7 is 38. I guess I can put that here. So n is 38. We know that that was the 38th term of the sequence. So now let's find the sum of those 38 terms. So it looks like we get 5,415 for our sum. Number 11, first term. We know we want to plug in 1 first. We get -1. We're going to need to know our last term. Looks like that's the 4th term. So we plug in 4, 8, so -7. And this time I know what n is, because we're going from term 1 through 4, so that's 4 terms. So let's plug it all in. So add them together, -8, half of that is -4, times 4 is -16. Number 12, plug in 1, first term, so we get 8. Looking for the 6th term, so plug in 6, we get 23. From 1 through 6, that's 6 terms. So 93 is what we should get here. Now number 13, looks like we're going to start with the 3rd term. So I'm going to plug 3 in first. So 5 times 3 is 15, minus 10 is 5. Our last term will be the 8th term. We plug in 8. We get 30. So n is how many terms there are. It's not 8 this time because I didn't start at 1. So from 3 to 8, you can subtract them. You get 5, but add 1, you get 6. So there are 6 terms there. So we're looking for the sum of these 6 terms. $105. Find the first 3 terms. Okay, this time we know the sum. Okay, so we're using the sum formula that we used above. So we know the sum is 100. We don't know what n is. Okay, we're going to have to figure that out. First term was 1, the last term was 19. 20 divided by 2 is 10. So we have 100 equals 10n. So n must be 10. So now that we know what n is, we go back and use this 19. Think about this last term that we have. The term itself is 19. The first term was 1. When I use the 19 term, that's when I use 19, that was the 10th term, so n value is 10. So use 10 minus 1 times d. I don't know what d is. You have to subtract away the 1. So d equals 2. So now, I know that, so we need to find the first 3 terms. The first term was 1. They gave us that. And now it looks like I'm adding 2. I found that d is 2, so 3 and 5. Alright, number 15. Looks like I don't know the first term, but I know some other things. So the sum is 45. We know n is 15. Don't know a sub 1. 5 and 4/5. I'm going to call that 5.8. Divided by 2. I'm going to divide away the 15. Multiply by 2. Oops, plus. So a sub 1 plus 5.8 equals 6. Subtract away 5.8, we get 0.2, or 1/5. And put it back in fraction form, since that's what those a sub n was given to me as. And so now I can give the first 3 terms. 1/5. I don't know what d is yet. I still have to figure out what d is before I can give the next terms. So let's hold off on that for a second. So use 5.8. That was my nth term. Oh, sorry. We know that was the 15th term. We know that that was 15. Okay, our first term, 1/5 or 0.2. N was 15, so 15 minus 1 times d. I don't know what d is. Subtract away the 0.2, so 5.6 equals 14d. Divided by 14. 5.6 divided by 14 is 0.4. That's 2/5. And maybe it's confusing. I'm switching back and forth between decimals and fractions. I'm wanting to end up with fractions just because a sub n was in fraction form. Sometimes it's easier to use decimals while we're doing a calculation. So, oops. Okay, so the first 3 terms. We know the first term was 1/5. Then we just add 2/5, gives us 3/5. Add 2/5 again, gives us 5/5, which is 1. So there's the first 3 terms. Alright, now number 16. Sum is 175. Don't know what n is again. So 35, so it's 17.5. Divided by 17.5, we get that n is 10. And then I want to find, need to find out what d is. So the 31st term is equal to the first term plus n, which is 10. So 10 minus 1 times d. So that's 9. Subtract the 4 away, 28. Or sorry, 27 rather. Equals 9d. Divide by 9, so d is 3. So now I know what d is. My first term was 4. We're adding 3, so 7, and then at 3 again we get 10. Okay, number 17. Don't know what A1 is. Divide by 10. multiply by 2, subtract 41. Sorry, I don't know why I wrote 45. It's 5. A sub 1 equals 5. Sorry, I'm making a lot of mistakes. I should slow down a little bit. So my first term is 5. I need to know what D is. So I know 41 is the first term, which is 5, plus 41's in value is 10. So 10 minus 1 times D. Subtract the 5, 36 equals 9D, so D has to equal 4. So now my first term was 5, and then I'm adding 4s. So 9, 13. Let's go to the back page. We'll talk about geometric. So find the indicated term, find a sub n rather. Yeah, find the nth term. And they give us a specific term. We're looking for the fifth term here. First term is negative 3. R is negative 2. Make sure you put negative 2 in parentheses to connect that negative. Oh, sorry, you can't see what I'm doing. Make sure you put parentheses around negative 2 so you connect the negative with the 2 to the power of n minus 1. N is 5, so 5 minus 1. So that's really a 4. So when I type in the calculator, I'm just going to type in, got negative 3, parentheses, negative 2, close the parentheses to the power of 4. So negative 48. Number 19, we're looking for the sixth term. Ooh, got a large term we're starting with. Going up by 1/4. So we're going down, we're dividing by 4 over and over again. So it'll go down quickly. But we have 6 minus 1, so fifth power. So 6, 5, 5, 3, 6, 1/4 to the fifth power. So 64. Number 20, for the ninth term, going pretty big again. So eighth power, so negative 78,125 times 1/5 to the eighth. Negative 0.2, that's negative 1/5. Number 21, a sub n, first term is 2, looks like we're multiplying by negative 3, so negative 3 to the n minus 1. Okay, number 22, we're going to have to find out what the first term is. We know 1/8 would be the first term times r to the power of 6 minus 1. So we've got, so I'm going to do 3 to the 5th, which is 243, over 4 to the 5th, which is 1024. And so to solve for a sub 1, I have to multiply by its reciprocal. So I have to do the same thing over here. 1024 over 243. 1024 and 8 can simplify to 128 and 1. So now I see that a sub 1 is 128 over 243. So there's my first term. So now I can give my equation. I don't know my first term. It wouldn't be hard to figure it out because I know my second term. I know what I'm multiplying by, so I'm just going to work backwards. I'm going to take my second term, the negative 96. I'm going to divide it by the r so that I get the first term. It's not worth writing down an equation, I don't think. I think we can just do that instead. You see that it's 12. Since we only had to go back one step, it seemed easier to just divide by negative 8 once. So now my equation, my first term is 12 times negative 8 to the n minus 1. Number 24. So it's geometric, so from one term to the next I'm multiplying by r. So I started at 1, I'm multiplying by r, but I have to multiply it once, twice, thrice, 4 times, so to the 4th power, and I end up at 81. I'm going to solve this. I could divide by 1, we just have r to the 4th equals 81. So then, if we have r to the 4th equals 81, trying to solve this, I have to take it to the 4th root. And since that's an even value, I have to do plus or minus. So plus or minus the 4th root of 81, which is 3. So r could be a positive 3, r could be a negative 3. Consider both cases. If r is positive 3, if we're multiplying by 3, positive 3, I started with 1, so my next term would be 3, then 9, then 27, and then it would go to 28. So there's one option, 3, 9, 27. Or, if I multiply by negative 3, I start at 1, multiply by negative 3, I get negative 3. And then I get a positive 9, and then I get a negative 27. And then it'd be back to positive 81. I don't have enough information to know which of those two it is, so I have to give them both. Number 25. Find the sum of the series. We really have two formulas for this. As for what you need to know for the quiz, what you should have to memorize, I would make sure you know the first formula that I gave you, a sub 1 minus a sub 1 times r to the n over 1 minus r. I will tell you, based off looking at the quiz, that's enough information. That's the only equation you really need to know. There's a second one that we'll use on this particular worksheet. It will come in handy at times, so I'm going to list it as well, but I believe it's not going to be as important on the quiz to know, but there's that one too. So we really have two options to use for geometric series. So number 25. Looks like we have 8 terms. So the sum of these 8 terms is equal to our first term, 360, minus our first term again, times r, which is 4/3, to the power of 8, over 1 minus 4/3. If you type this in the calculator, just make sure you set parentheses around the numerator and around the denominator. But that's all there is to that one. So 360 minus 360 times 4/3 to the 8th. Oops. Done with the numerator, so divide by denominator, 1 minus 4/3. Okay, there's our answer. We can go ahead and give it as a decimal. That's okay. So 9,707. I'll go with 0.82. I'll go 2 decimal places maybe. Okay, next formula. I really have a choice which of the two options I want to use. So let's just go ahead and use the first equation, since that's the only one I told you would need to have memorized for this particular quiz. So 1 to 10, that's 10 terms. So we're looking for 10 terms. The first term, you got to plug 1 in. When you plug 1 in for your exponent becomes 1 minus 1, which is 0. So you have negative 1 to the 0. Anything to the 0 is equal to positive 1. So we get positive 1 times 5, which is 5. So our first term is 5. R value, maybe I should write these down. The first term was 5. R value, that's the number that's raised to the exponent. That's the negative 1. N is how many terms there are. From 1 to 10 is 10 terms. Those are the numbers I'm using. Set parentheses around the numerator, parentheses around the denominator. 5 minus 5 times negative 1 to the 10th divided by 2 is 0. That might seem strange to you, and maybe you even question whether that's accurate or not. But let's think about what this series is. It starts with the term of 5, and then we're multiplying by negative 1. R is negative 1. So when you multiply by negative 1, you get negative 5. Multiply by negative 1, you get positive 5 again. Then you get negative 5 again. You get positive 5 again, etc. And so every time you have pairs, they'll end up, when you're summing, they're going to cancel out to make a 0. So if you have an even number of pairs, we have 10 of them. So we have an even number of them. They're going to cancel out and make a 0. That seems to make sense. So not to worry about getting a 0 on that particular problem. Number 27. Okay, for our first term, plug in 1. It makes your exponent 0. 4 to the 0 is 1, times 3 is 3. We need to know r, that's the number raised to the exponent, that's 4. We need to know how many terms there are. From 1 to 6 is 6 terms. So let's plug them in. So the sum of these 6 terms is equal to your first term minus your first term times r to the nth over 1 minus r. Parentheses. Oops. And get that the sum is 4,095. Then for number 28, we have to work backwards a little bit to find what the first term is. Okay, so the sum is 1550. I'll be using the exact same equation I was just using. So a sub 1 minus a sub 1 times r, which is 5 to the power of n over 1 minus r. I'm going to do just a little bit of simplifying here real quick. So that's going to be 125 a sub 1 over negative 4. Okay, if I'm going to solve this, first thing I'm going to do is multiply by negative 4. Let's multiply by negative 4. Okay, there we go. So 1550 times negative 4 is negative 6200. Right this way. Okay. And over here, where I have a sub 1 in both terms, I'm going to factor out the a sub 1. So 1 minus 125 is what I'm left with, which is negative 124. So then I divide by negative 124. Negative 6200 divided by negative 124 is 50. Positive 50. And that's what we were looking for. Just said to find a sub 1. Okay, number 29. Same thing. I guess I gave you the second equation. Looks like we don't need it anywhere. I was thinking for some reason that I needed that equation on this worksheet, but looks like I don't. So you can disregard that. This one up here, it's not going to be necessary because number 29 gives us the same pieces of information, different numbers, same pieces though. Sum is 1512. Don't know the first term. Minus a sub 1 times r to the nth over 1 minus r. Simplify a bit. 2 to the 6th. Now that's 64, so 64 a sub 1 over negative 1. So multiply by negative 1. Over here I'm going to factor out the a sub 1, leaving me with 1 minus 64, which is negative 63, divided by negative 63. 24. Positive 24.